Hello and welcome to the Hard Tech Podcast. Joining me today is Colby Harvey, CEO of Ultraview, a startup using autonomous drones to visually inspect aircraft using AI. Colby, it's great to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really glad that someone's building a podcast like this. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I think today's podcast is going to be awesome. We have a nice looking drone behind us here today. But before we get into the discussion proper, let's set the tone for the audience by describing the general concept of drones being used for aircraft inspections.
Sure. So drones have a multitude of varying uses, which is really exciting. I mean, we first saw them in movies and things like that. But now, as we look at these technologies and their evolution and how computer vision and autonomy is playing a big role in how these things are growing, they are capable of working in new ways that we didn't initially perceive when they were created. So in this particular case, an aviation inspection, I really kind of brought it into aviation inspection because the point of autonomy is to do consistent and tedious tasks that typically humans can, we can get a waiver from, get a little tired. And so these technologies, especially for aviation, is critical because these aircraft are inspected pretty frequently and consistently, and they're huge. They're huge planes.
Yeah. Okay, so it seems like it solves a problem in terms of reducing the amount of time, the amount of effort it will take a human being to do some of these inspections, right? But before we get into the discussion of autonomous drones and aircraft inspections, let's talk about you a little bit. It seems like you've been built for these from day one. You studied aviation management in college, and you've built a startup in the aerospace industry. So what's your origin story, and what sparked your interest in the aerospace industry?
Yeah. So I'll keep a long story short. So I'm originally from Michigan, from Detroit. My first intentions were to go to the Air Force Academy because I wanted to fly F-16s, F-22s, F-35s, things of that nature. But I am 6'5", and I don't fit. Well, I can fit, but if I ever need to eject for any reason, I'd like to have my legs. So, but with that being said, so I've always had an affinity for the aviation industry. I wanted to find a way to work in it without necessarily working for it directly. So I studied. Initially, I studied computer science at Arizona State. Then I got to Calc 3 and said, "Yep, this isn't for me." And I switched to aviation, where I then got the opportunity to go down the aviation management track, which happens to be the same track that pilots take. I wanted to initially be a pilot as well, so I got to learn a lot of the same things that the pilots learned. I even got to fly myself, and then ultimately, ASU had a drone program, and I was able to connect a couple of dots, and that's how I created the company. But I mean, before that, I'd worked in various Fortune 500 companies, American Express, Charles Schwab, and then ultimately ending at Google out in San Francisco, before I founded my own company. And now I've been here doing that ever since.
Fantastic. I have to say, you're the first person I've heard who just moved away from software engineering to hardware related engineering. So like that.
It was a stretch.
Typically, yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, generally we see it going the other way. This is good. This is very good. Okay. All right, let's get into the tech. Can you briefly describe how Ultraview's autonomous drones operate and what specific inspections are being carried out? I see your drone right here. It looks fantastic. Is this like a bee design, like a with the eye in front of it?
So it's like a dragonfly.
Okay.
Essentially, like our designers, we put it together. We went through a bunch of different concepts. The system is modular, so we can change out that front gimbal and put anything else that we need on the front of it. And thanks for the design. We actually won 2 design awards: the Red Dot Award and the IF Award, back in 2021 and 2022, I believe. But going back to the question, right? And if I'm remembering correctly, the question was, I don't know, how does the drone operate?
Yeah, how do the autonomous drones operate? Yeah, and what inspections are you carrying out with them?
Yeah. So the drone, I was pretty adamant about using a 3D lidar system. So this drone is equipped with a 3D lidar system, and that provides it like a 360 view of the entire world. Have you ever seen those self-driving cars? Like you see a lot of the cruises right now, they're all using this system and some other AI magic too to make those things fly. I mean, to drive. So I figured this is the best way to have a system that's operating in active environments, that being the hangar, to make sure it's navigating effectively and not hitting anything or coming close. So how the drone operates at a really high level is that it has a map of whatever aircraft it is that we're going to inspect. Typically, we've already gone out, we've flown around this aircraft at one of our partner or customer facilities. We've gathered this data, we've created the map or a model, what's called a digital twin, of that plane, and then the drone uses the LiDAR. When we put it next to an aircraft and we tell it what kind of aircraft it is, it already has that map. So we put it next to a plane, it launches, it's just doing a comparison like, is what I'm seeing in the real world with that LiDAR the same as what I have been pre-programmed to understand about the world, and then creating waypoints around that aircraft. So it's fully autonomous. It's just making sure that it doesn't hit anything. It can navigate around things. So in terms of the maintenance side and for its particular application, so it would be used. We'd say in the aviation industry, especially around maintenance, there are 4 types of checks. There's your A through your D checks. D being like your longest checks, right? Those are like 10 years.
Yeah.
And those are like, they take the entire plane apart, bring everything, and they inspect and make sure there's no like wear or corrosion or anything. So that's one great application check that's happening. We can also look at more like C checks. So these inspections or checks are happening inside of the hangar specifically, which we're working to make sure that we can fly out, outdoors. I mean, Boeing and Delta and United are working on that program right now with the FAA, which is great because that's when we really hit that sweet spot of being able to really deploy these systems and get them out there. But yeah, so these inspections, so they're varying amount of hours. Essentially what happens, flight hours that the aircraft go through, and that determines, hey, is it getting inspected overnight or is it going down for, a month or 2 at a time for this inspection.
Nice. Okay, so actually this reminds me of, I was actually on this podcast a few weeks ago. I was talking about the Tesla robots and how they could map the entire, and this is not specific to Tesla, but they could map out the entire environment that they view, right? Basically, so whenever I see eyes like this, I'm like, wow. And then, like you said, they can compare what they're looking at versus what should be there. And they can tell differences. They can tell all those things, right? So, and we're going to talk about the uses of these drones as in beyond aircraft inspection later on, but I'm noticing that this could be very, very
there's a lot.
Yeah, it could be very it could have very wide ranging applications. You say you won 2 design awards, 2021, 2022. You expand on that a little bit, and just what is the inspiration for the Dragonfly design? Like, what is the real inspiration?
Yeah. So I'll start with the Red Dot Award and kind of what that is, and then get into that inspiration. But the Red Dot Award is like this really, really prestigious German design award. Like it is like kind of the top of the top of awards that can be given to like hardware products. So things like Apple and Toyota, and when they create these beautiful products, they always apply for that. And it's huge. There's a big book that you get. It's awesome. And a lot of like global recognition for it. The IF Award is kind of similar along that vein as well. So they're really, together with our industrial designers, the name is Hatch Duo. John Tai is the CEO over there. He's a really, really good friend of mine out in San Jose.
Hatch Duo?
Hatch Duo, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely recommend, if you guys are doing anything with hardware, I would definitely recommend giving.
We are all about hardware here.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and they know how to work with startups.
Okay.
And they're really accomplished. So as we're going through this design process, I gave a lot of cues of things that I really enjoyed, and product design, like things of my favorite products. What do these look like? And then also things that inspire me from the world, and they kind of brought in some more real world aspects. But I love cars, so like if you look at the back of the drone, it has like lights, like it's like race cars do on the back of it. So they implemented that design into the product as well, and then they were pulling items from nature and how they fly and how they look. So as they're doing this, we got like a brand book and had like a firefly, dragonfly, and then our drone kind of as a model is like that.
Yeah.
Let's iterate on that. That looks really great.
Yeah. Some people will say physics is the foundation for engineering in general. I say it's biology, it's nature. Like, yeah, physics too, but it's some of the best designs that you can come up with, or some of the best functionalities you can get out of hardware technologies come from just mimicking nature, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nature's put together and built everything first. So.
It already exists in nature. Just copy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you were talking earlier on about Boeing, Delta, companies like that, trying to get FAA approval for inspections outdoors. Who are the biggest customers in this space, right? And how frequently do they need these type of inspections to be done? The type of inspections that you do with your drone?
Yeah. So pulling back on the initial time, the amount of checks that happen, that's really the time frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you're a couple hundred flight hours to every 10 years, something like that. So the biggest customers, there's several. So the people that are in the space that would utilize our this product it's called MROs. So maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities. Those are where aircraft go to be repaired. Either they could be either United, Delta, and American can have their own hubs, or there's third party ones that like FEAM and Lufthansa Technik or that are out there that they can send planes to. Some of the customers that we work with that are pretty big would be like the U.S. Air Force, for example. They have large fleets of aircraft that need to be maintained. Always. These things have to be mission capable at any given moment. So, we are initially, for us, as we're having more conversations with the Air Force, they're using our product for inspections of the B-1 platform or the C-130, carrier aircraft. So, we also have, your technical operations a Delta Tech Ops, again, the two Lufthansa, FEAM, MRO Holdings. There's actually, believe it or not, there's a lot of companies out there. Yeah.
Simply because
we gotta fly.
Yeah, we gotta fly, and you don't want anything to go wrong in the air, all right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. But I was speaking with Roger on the previous podcast, a friend, and we were talking about drones in the sky and how they have to be autonomous to an extent and reducing the need for human involvement and things like that, and how if there's a crash, it's not going to be pretty, right? So this is very crucial. All right. Now we've talked about autonomous drone inspections, right? We've talked about the concept of these drones being able to operate on their own. I'm assuming that the current state of the art is not like that, right? What's the current state of the art, right? And how are autonomous drones or your drones better?
Right. So yeah, that's a great question. So traditionally, and I'm not sure how people will be to hear this because we fly a lot, but traditionally,
hey, say it, man. Go ahead.
Oh, it's what goes down in MROs sometimes, and you'd be surprised. It's a lot of it's very manual. We can say that. So it's a lot. Traditionally, it's like inspectors that are getting up on a scissor lift or a boom lift. They're essentially attaching themselves to the ceiling of a hangar to walk across the crown. That's the top of the aircraft to look for these damages. And also if they're using like pen and paper to mark down damages that they find. Yeah, you'd think it'd be much more of a higher tech process, but it really isn't. And a lot of times when these inspections are happening, inspectors accidentally cause more damage to a plane because they can run those scissor lifts or boom lifts into the side of them, which happens more than you think, believe it or not. So our system, our platform, reduces the overall need for that. The only thing that our drone is not like going up there and fixing any of the damages, right? So we're just an inspection tool. We're an extension of the technician that's performing that inspection. But with that being said, the drone, I mean, even if the drone were to fall, we have like a 2 meter operating distance. We're getting down to 1.5 meters and soon enough to a meter, getting us a certain enough distance from that aircraft. But even if it were to fall, that drone, like wet, is about 12 pounds, I'd say. About 12 pounds. And so it's not going to cause the same damage as if you run a boom lift into the side of a plane.
Yeah.
Luckily, we've never had that ever happen. The drone's never crashed, which is great. We want to keep it that way. But we have a more modern and digital approach into how we're performing these inspections, which is now being really recognized by like the large players and by the regulatory body authorities, being like the FAA, EASA, and so on.
That's good. Wow. I was just going to mention that if your drones are carrying out visual inspections and, mapping out the environment, comparing it to what it's supposed to be, but humans still have to go in there to fix any issues, are there any plans in the future or anyone working on the idea of actually using robots to go fix these things instead of humans?
Yeah, not me, but yeah, this is one hard enough problem to tackle on its own. There's other companies out, especially that are out here that I've met before that have created like different tools or different robotic solutions that are repairing some of the damage, some like specific types of damages on airframes, which I see they've been getting some great traction. So like for me, for what I would be interested in is more of like a relational partnership, like maybe partnership between the two companies. So it's like we kind of can come in as a deal to whatever client or customer is looking at implementing these solutions into their maintenance operations or programs.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some, just need to say there are some out there.
Yeah, there are companies working on this. As I was asking that question just now, we've been running this podcast for a few months now, and I've been getting a lot of feedback about some of the technologies we talk about. And anything that involves a robot replacing a human, it just, draws out like huge visceral like reactions from people, right? And then I'm asking this question about replacing highly paid, because aircraft tech, people tend to be well paid, right? Replacing highly paid people with robots, and it just struck me that this is gonna create.
So I'll stop you right there, because that's I mean that is definitely a big thing that has come. But just like anything with AI, I mean look at ChatGPT and a lot of things or jobs that it's automating. So there's definitely a fine line on these systems that are coming to the workforce, and the unique, or what's actually has like even unions that are excited about like my platform and other platforms that are like this. It's the fact that it's an augmentation tool, more as an extension to that qualified mechanic, as opposed to something that's replacing it. Right?
Yeah.
So as we build our computer vision models, that's going to be a very, very long process before like the FAA will recognize, identified damages and defects through just computer vision alone. There has to be a human that reviews those images at the end of the day, and signs off on the task card. So our system is meant to augment, and is shown to augment the mechanic and make their life easier.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're still getting paid the same amount, but now you have a system that's making your job a lot safer. You don't have any fault. There's no fall risk until you actually go up there and repair damage if it is found. And it's a lot faster process. So that payout is in dividends to the airline or the carrier to get their aircraft back in service, even if it's just a day or two sooner than traditionally. That's a lot of realized capital or revenue for them.
I agree. I think it's people can get upskilled, and better work can get done, and processes can become more efficient. And like you said, this is not going to replace anybody, right? So that's true. So for anyone listening, yeah,
If you're an AP.
I'm getting used to the feedback now, and I'm like, okay, I get it. But I think overall, just like the internet didn't really replace anybody. It just made people more highly skilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
AI would basically be a thing where you use AI to do better work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where you should be instead of being scared of it.
And yeah, I mean, and that's also being idealistic. I mean, there's also, you can see, I think it was like Elon and Bill Gates coming out and saying that these are things that we should be aware of and we should watch for. But those, there's different things that can be done, and I'm not going to make this into a political thing in any way, but like legislatively or anything else that can be done to insulate people from the advancements as they're going through this upskilling, and learning new things and learning how to operate in this post AI world.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go on into talking about what is discovered or things that are discovered during aircraft inspections, right? What are the biggest issues that you find, and let's even take it a step further and say if these issues are not fixed, what could happen?
Yeah, some of the issues and the things that we look for when we perform these inspections, and that we train the computer vision to look to identify, are like paint defects, because paint defects can, like, depending on how it is, if there's like bubbling on the paint, like that can be an indication that there's water under the paint, and if there's water on the paint on metal, that can create an issue or fatigue, and ultimately create fractures and rust and things that are really bad to have on an airframe, right? So you want to make sure that that aircraft is painted and coated properly. You're looking for stress fractures that happened on the airframe, and if a stress fracture gets too big, which we really don't hear a lot of those because thank God they're caught, could lead to depressurization events and things like that. So we want to just be cautious about those. There's also like missing rivets that come aboard, and unless you have like a large subsection of that happening, it's not too dangerous. But you want to make sure that you are the airline or the operator is aware of that and repairs those and fixes those rivets. There's lightning strikes, which is the initial use case that so myself and even some of our competitors are identifying. Those lightning strikes, if not identified, can lead to some severe issues with the integrity of the airframe itself. And so those are really interesting to find. I'd say they're rare, but they're not as rare as we think, especially now with the changing climate and thunderstorms striking the aircraft. By the way, you're completely safe inside of an aircraft. If you're going through a lightning storm, they have static wicks that lightning goes off one way. But yeah, there's also like dents and things that can happen that can impact the airworthiness of the aircraft that want to be identified.
Now you mentioned lightning strikes. I actually was watching a video the other day, Lufthansa saying something about every time a plane gets struck by lightning, it needs to be extra inspected, basically. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Every single time that it's like if a pilot flies through and calls the tower and says, "Hey, we've experienced a strike event, a lightning strike event," that aircraft is immediately taken out of service to be inspected.
Wow. Okay. That's nice to know. Okay. Now let's move on to something more somber, I guess. In 2018 and 2019, the whole world witnessed two Boeing 737 MAX planes crashing. Because of the newly designed maneuvering characteristics augmentation system, MCAS. Everyone knows it as MCAS system. I don't know if this is possible, but I just want to ask: is it possible to design aircraft inspection systems to discover manufacturer caused defects?
So specifically for the MCAS, no, that's a software thing. It's a software issue. That's something. Well, it's kind of a mixed thing. Boeing did something that was particularly pretty interesting and not honestly great. The MCAS system relies on the pedostatic tubes and so those are, I'm going to get into, it's basically like sensors to understand the angle of attack. So where the plane is, pointed, right? So typically those are redundant. There are two of those, but Boeing sold it as an option, not as a a standard feature, which was a big reason why this also happened. So so that was the issue with the MCAS system. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about the design of the 737 MAX.
That's cool.
But in terms of looking for manufacturer issues, so we focus, and when I say we, like Ultraview focuses on the visual inspection process.
Yeah.
So, we've been approached by people like Boeing, people like Airbus, for the use of these systems in manufacturing environments. So as these aircraft are rolling off the assembly line, they're being inspected because they're always being inspected to ensure that there's no damages or nothing that occurs and nothing that's out of the, tolerance levels for a newly built aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a place where our systems can also sit, or like inspection systems can sit, or in that manufacturing process. But unfortunately, the MCAS was a completely different
software issue. But okay.
Software and a missing component.
I started wondering, right? The planes that crashed weren't being flown for the first time. They've been flown a few times. They were new, but they've been flown a few times, and then you had pilots who just like were unlucky, or maybe didn't study manual to understand it.
That was a big issue too.
Yeah.
So I mean, as much as Boeing is at fault for what happened in these particular airlines because of, you can think of like pilot shortages and things like that, the pilots were not trained enough on the system. They didn't have enough flight hours on that platform, which you want to have a couple hundred hours on those platforms as you're flying them, and so therefore they had no idea what to do when like MCAS engaged, for example. So there were a series of issues that happened that led up to those events, but yeah, to your point.
Yeah. So okay, can you walk? Do you remember what the real issue was about? I don't know. Was it the flaps, not the angle of?
So it was
something.
Yeah. So it pushed the angle of attack. It was the angle of attack. So the system would think that the plane was going into a stall.
Okay.
Like going up, even though the aircraft was not doing that.
Okay.
And so that's the MCAS system would engage. And the reason why this happened is because when they made the MAX, they just pushed the motors further out, so it'd be a little bit more efficient, which would change the flight dynamics of that aircraft.
Okay.
Right. So the plane would think that the plane was going up, so the MCAS would push the nose down.
Oh.
And so when the MCAS pushed the nose down, like the pilots didn't know what was going on, and they didn't know to disengage MCAS.
Yeah.
And that's what was causing the crashes.
Okay. So I'm guessing, so this goes beyond drone inspection discussions, right? But I just want to know, is there a way to do this, or does it exist to basically study the behavior of different parts or different components of the aircraft to study it, whenever the plane lands, to see things to avoid, maybe a pilot went through that process and kind of got lucky and said, okay, I haven't been trained on this, but let me disengage this new thing, and then was fine, and that would have helped. Is there a way to do that in the sky in real time?
Well, nothing beats training. Proper training actually how to use the platform. In terms of
talking about visual inspection of the plane itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get this a lot, but no, we don't. Our drones aren't flying with the aircraft doing the inspections. That's not happening.
Yeah.
That'd be cool, but no, we're not doing that.
Maybe have cameras outside the plane. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
they do?
These aircraft, I mean, especially the new ones, they're really sophisticated. I mean,
okay.
They have sensors all throughout that entire platform, right? That are monitoring that aircraft or that airframe. But I mean, it's not really in terms of like the visual inspection process as a whole, in my particular case. So I'm like, I don't build airframes.
Yeah. Let's move beyond aircraft inspection and 737 MAX crashes and things like that, right? Where else can this type of technology be impactful? So the technology I'm talking about is your technology, autonomous drone inspections.
Yeah. So specifically, I guess I'll take this in terms of the next, the verticals of focus in which we are, moving into. So there are applications for maritime, so boats, doing inspections, and particularly like dry dock for us is a good version of that, because these of cargo ships, these are massive pieces of equipment. There's also, I mean, you hear it a lot, but infrastructure being a big one, oil and gas, pipelines, solar, wind farms, implications there as well. There's also the space industry as well. So return to launch, we've seen with SpaceX and Blue Origin and creating these return to launch vehicles. So these, Falcon 9 rocket can launch and come back and autonomously land. So those things need to be inspected as well. So that's another application for this technology. So there's definitely a slew of, everything that's built is to be inspected.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a pretty wide opportunity.
Yeah.
To do that.
So I'm noticing a theme here. Really big stuff, right? Boats, large boats, oil and gas. You can have really either tall or very deep structures, solar, wind. I was talking the other day about the wind turbines in water and how they've gotten larger and larger and larger because of the amount of wind available across water. And then space vehicles, obviously, very large. Okay, so those are the obvious applications. Oh, yeah, I have a further question about this. So can you make these autonomous drones, can you make them very small, like really small, and still have some of the core functionality in there?
Yeah. It depends on how small we're talking here. So you can look at different products like kind of Skydio or something that have their drones are relatively small.
Mm-hmm.
You do like systems like LiDAR, right? So that that thing that's right under there, that silver thing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are getting. I'm not sure if they're getting much smaller. Not sure the ability to get much smaller, but there's certain things. There's certain things that you lose by shrinking the platform. A lot of it has to do with flight time too. So
Yeah.
we get about 22 minutes on this drone.
Yeah.
We're redesigning it to get probably around 30 to 35 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's actually shrinking the platform, making it smaller. But that's just something to take into consideration when doing that. And there's a lot of practical applications for having smaller drones and there are some that are out there. There's some really cool ones that are out there that can go into like wells and caves and things or like even smaller environment. But I don't know.
Right.
We're not. If this is Avengers and I was Tony Stark, I'd make some really small and cool.
Yeah, like Ant-Man and stuff. Yeah, but I understand what you mean as an energy guy. I'm really interested in what this drone discussion. But once you made it all about energy, I was like, okay, that's my field. I get it. I get it completely. But that would be so cool though, because you could inspect tiny spaces, and you might not have to open up some systems simply because you can just send a tiny drone in there. But then you're limited by the flight time. You have to keep sending it back to recharge every time. But if we can make some advancements in energy, then hopefully we can shrink this all the way down.
Battery technology would be great. Like if I get an hour flight time out of one single battery, that'd be, oh my God.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. As of right now, you have enough problems to worry about, enough inspections to do, more than you can handle. Okay, so let's get into this topic we've been avoiding for a while, AI. Right? So I've done this podcast enough times to know that AI is playing a major role in new hardware technologies. Everywhere you go, you see it. You just can't avoid it, including yours, obviously. But what is your prediction for the future of drone inspections with AI? Will human involvement be? We discussed this already, but do you think it could happen? I know yours is just to augment human involvement, but do you think human involvement will still be there in the future?
I think thinking of it from a broader perspective, that there will still be humans that are overseeing AI in some capacity. It's doing to a more micro application, or I guess specifically mine. I do at some point these computer vision models, the technology is advanced far enough that these systems are capable of seeing so much more than a traditional human can. So I think in some way there's there's going to be a lot less involvement from the human side. It's a lot less it's called human in the loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for these systems, you know, at least, I mean, even still when that happens, someone's going to have to take the drone out there and do that. Then someone's going to have to audit it, something. But like, I mean, just like anything that we can, that AI touches, there's that possibility is there. So I do definitely very much see that, you know, potentially, I mean, becoming the case, you know, further down the line, but not for another
long time,
5 to 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, I'm hoping not.
If that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it just, like we already talked about this, it just makes humans more efficient. That'll be pretty cool. AI, everything about tech right now centers around AI, right?
I mean, when you think about it, I mean, AI is really, really cool. Like the things that it can help us do. Like, I mean, when you have questions, you can just, I mean, ask ChatGPT, right? Like it just, there's a lot of those things that like we would have to wait till. And again, it's not always right, but it's getting better.
Yeah.
Right. So we just have to keep in mind like where we are. Like the AI right now is the worst it's ever going to be as it is right now.
Yeah.
It's always going to be getting better.
Speaking of AI and software in general, we tend to have these discussions on the podcast about hardware versus software, right? So, what do you think is the most important or the more important field in terms of the future of technologies in general? Hardware or software, or are they just perfect complementary fields?
That is a charged question, and I'm not trying to piss anybody off.
You can say pass. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that bad. So I mean, like, I think hardware and software are always going to complement one another.
Yeah,
for sure. Like, I mean, even if it's a software product, you have to have something that runs it. So
Yeah.
you need a hardware to interface with it, right? Like, that's never going to change. I do think that we've seen a lot of like what's happened over the past couple of years is, especially in the fundraising environment and all these companies getting, you know, huge valuations, and now they're having a hard time raising funding that are just software companies. You know, we're seeing that like more like physical products are important. I think with hardware, you're always going to need hardware.
Yeah.
You really are always going to need something that can operate the software, the autonomy, the CV that you are that you are using.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No worry. I'll save you I'll save you I'll save you from pissing anyone off. I'll just say that like you said, they're both they're complementary, and hardware needs software needs hardware. In general, though, in the startup space that we're in, it's harder to build a hardware company. But if you can build one, you'll probably be more okay than a software company in the long term. That's just my general opinion.
Yeah, you can be.
Yeah,
you definitely can be.
Yeah. But if you compare them like overall, right? It's easy for anyone to start an AI company right now. It's hard for anyone to start a robotics company right now.
Right. So it's like, think about it like what's making an actual impact, right?
Yeah.
Like to the world, because you create a piece of software that people interact with, where there can be something that comes the next year that gets rid of it. And the same is to be said about hardware. It's true, but since it's a lot harder of a space to operate in and a space to work in, less people are doing it. So you look at companies like, you know, like Boston Dynamics, for example, and
they've been building robots for the past 30 years, and no one is like, it's always just Boston Dynamics.
Yeah.
In the news and everything, yeah.
And I can't tell you how many countless companies that have come and gone that I've seen. I mean, unless they acquire these companies, like Jira or Asana's come out, and then Monday, and then there's all these management tools. These are all software products, but there's so many different ones that compete against it. Whereas when you build something that's hardware, there's not a ton of people.
Competition,
Yeah.
So you heard it here. Start a hardware company today. Whatever you do, stay alive. You'll be fine.
Get the right advisors.
Yeah.
Be sure you know what you're getting into.
Sure.
Talk to a lot of people that have done it.
Yeah, talk to a lot of people that have done it. Know it's going to be hard, but it's going to be fun. The pain is going to be awesome. But Either way, we need more hardware companies. As someone said, if you don't build stuff, there won't be stuff, right?
Yeah.
Somebody famous. You can Google that. I don't want to mention the name because it's controversial, but we've talked about him too many times on this podcast.
Show notes. Show notes.
Okay, so this was an awesome discussion about autonomous drones and AI and the future of the space. If people want to reach out to you or they want to talk to you about this technology more, how can they reach you?
Yeah. So if you want to reach me, so right now as we're building Ultraview and getting everything together, I'm getting all my ducks in a row. You understand, it's like building a company. There's a billion different things that all at once to do and not enough time. So you can reach me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn name's Colby Harvey. You'll see me there. You can also reach me on my email, which is colby@ultraview.io, which would be the best ways to reach me directly. Then as we launch our website, then there'll be an easier way to get in touch. But outside that, if you're in the Austin area, I'm around Capital Factory. So everyone want to see me, come say hi, grab coffee at lunch.
Or show up at the hardware happy hour monthly. Yeah.
I love those.
Get to meet all the hardware guys here in Austin and talk about stuff. Yeah. And that's great. That's great. It's always good to have discussion with people who built hardware startups, mostly like second time founders and, still building a new one. It feels a bit masochistic. But
oh yeah, no, it's definitely. But we were talking about pain. I guess I love this.
But it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming today, Colby.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This is a great discussion.
Yeah. Likewise. And with that, we've come to the end of another episode of the Hard Tech Podcast. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share the video. Also subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date with the future of physical technologies relating to robotics, energy, healthcare, transportation, and more.